Hello, my name is Henry Keane. This is News Pulse at UATV. Welcome to the daily segment. Today in the episode, all things in Russia going according to the plan. Ukrainian plan, apparently. More burning targets in Russian cities and 13 power hubs in Crimea destroyed. Lavrov meets Rubio, asks to stop Ukrainian deep strikes because it hurts and claims Russia is ready for peace talks. Ukraine signs a major drone deal with United States. Naval unmanned drones Magura will be co-produced en masse by Ukraine and America. Good drones have attacked a fuel energy facility in the Novoshakhtinsk in Russia's Ulyanovsk Oblast. The drones may have struck also the liquefied gas base operated by NS Oil LLC. NS Oil is a private Russian company of oil refining sector, obviously. Its main activities, the production of liquid fuels, petrol, diesel and other petroleum fractions, as well as the storage and shipment of these petroleum products and liquefied petroleum gas, LPG. Facilities as such, in particular, form Russian fuel and energy infrastructure and are vital for supplying the region and Russian army with fuel. In June and July, drone attacks halted oil refining at least 10 Russian refineries. As a result, oil refining volumes in Russia fell for a 20-year low. Russia has managed to restore less than half of these refineries damaged by Ukrainian drones. That ones with a combined capacity of about 40 million tons per year have indeed returned to fuel refining and then trading after unscheduled repairs. However, large refineries with a capacity of 45 million tons annually and more remain idle, and Ukrainian drones are not so idle, so we will gladly inform you on further fiery developments. Commander of the Armament System Forces Robert Magyar stated that in 2 days, the Ukrainian military forces destroyed as much as 13 vessels of the Russian Shadow Fleet and also 13 energy facilities in temporarily occupied Crimea and other occupied territories. According to him, these included 1 tanker, 10 dry cargo ships and 2 tugboats. Magyar emphasized that from July 6 to 22, a total of 196 Shadow Fleet vessels were identified and destroyed as part of this operation, 126 which were in the Sea of Azov and 70 in the Black Sea. Operation Crimean Switch Off calls to total aid of as much as 117 energy targets. Imagine you are someone close to Vladimir Putin and you are the one who made billions of dollars on Russian oil and raw materials and on this war, on military contracts, of course. But the problem is, it is dollars and euro, not rubles, that make your wealth. That means you and all of your Russian wealth both depend on Western banking system, absolutely. And when tables turn and refineries and warehouses burn all around you in Russia, you suddenly understand this war will also burn all of your wealth just as well, if not stopped. This is why Putin's entourage clearly signals to Ukraine Putin is the only problem. He is the only obstacle. He is the only reason for that war is still going on, and Putin alone is the reason for the scale of the losses that Russian nation and Russian elites now are only beginning to grasp.
Of course, the situation on the front, together with our long-range sanctions and mid-range strikes, is creating a new atmosphere around Putin, a very toxic atmosphere. He alone is the reason this war began and hasn't ended. Putin alone is responsible for the losses Russians continue to suffer. His retinue understands this. They are signaling it to us and to our partners. Russian society is beginning to feel it more and more as well. We need decisions to bring about peace. Ukraine has been ready for this for a long time, and we are doing everything we can to ensure this war ends with dignity.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov, during a meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on 23rd of July, called for an end to arms supplies to Ukraine and said Moscow is ready for peace talks. Lavrov briefed Rubio on Russian state of affairs in Russia's war against Ukraine and then, just for a brief moment, returned to reality and stated that further arms deliveries to Ukraine were unacceptable because Russia is being hurt, and badly. Lavrov also tried to put some pressure on Marco Rubio by stating that these Ukrainian deep strikes are not legit in general and must end in particular. But Marco Rubio dismissed all the claims by saying that America sees what Russia does to Ukraine every day and Ukrainian retaliation strikes are absolutely legit. An absolute also copy-paste to the Kremlin narratives was recently published by Bloomberg News, titled, I quote for you, "Kremlin hardens stance on occupied Ukrainian land, blames U.S." End of title. All articles are a matter of opinion. Of course, what is a matter of fact, though, is that purely statistically, articles as these posted by Bloomberg for some reason always appear right when Russia feels cornered and weak, trying to inflate cheeks at least and look great and terrible. Just saying. And Russians have a good reason to act like they do now, panicking. The American company ReconCraft will produce the Ukrainian Magura unmanned naval drones boats from now on. The memorandum with the manufacturer Uforce was signed in Washington. The agreement was concluded against the backdrop of the U.S. use of naval drones in combat operations, including the attack on an Iranian submarine in July. Its value was not disclosed, but according to ReconCraft, for co-founder Joe Slikovsky, we are talking about the production of thousands of boats each year at factories in Oregon and South Carolina. Uforce CEO Oleg Rokinsky called Ukraine's permission to produce Magura in the U.S. landslide. These boats capable of transporting 770 kilos of cargo, which means explosives, over 500 kilometers and cost less than $500,000. Fuel production in Russia in early July dropped to 65% of seasonal consumption. According to Reuters, the shortage has also reached the army. The Russian military is complaining about interruptions in the supply of gasoline and diesel. They have to buy fuel from speculators. It's several times more expensive, of course, and they have to travel less, which is good. More in our next story for you.
Military facilities, strategic industrial sites, particularly oil refineries and fuel storage depots, as well as logistics hubs, remain the primary targets of Ukraine's defense forces deep inside Russian territory.
Ukraine has successfully carried out long-range strikes against key targets in Russia's Krasnodar and Stavropol regions, hitting logistics centers used to supply the Russian military with drone components, navigation equipment, and other military hardware. Another oil storage facility was also successfully struck. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, on Telegram.
An oil depot caught fire in the city of Armavir. According to local authorities, the blaze spread across an area of approximately 800 square meters. Ukrainian strikes on Russia's oil infrastructure have triggered what analysts describe as the most severe fuel crisis in the country's modern history. Acute shortages and soaring gasoline and diesel prices have forced the Russian government to introduce centralized fuel distribution. Under the new allocation system, priority is effectively given to state institutions. At the top of the list are the military and defense industry enterprises, followed, at a considerable distance, by the agricultural sector. Businesses and ordinary motorists are at the very bottom of the priority list. Analysts argue that these measures will not resolve the shortage, but instead further distort the market.
Ukraine's strikes are systematically targeting Russia's energy infrastructure and refining industry, and this is already having a direct impact on public sentiment inside Russia. The destruction of key logistics hubs also changes people's perceptions. It's one thing to watch the war on television. It's something entirely different when it begins affecting your own daily life and personal comfort.
Even those classified as priority consumers are now experiencing severe fuel shortages. Russian servicemen told the independent outlet Verstka that gasoline and diesel supplies to frontline units have been significantly reduced by as much as 30% in some areas. According to the Moscow Times, fuel shortages have forced Russian troops to buy gasoline from black market dealers at prices 5 to 6 times higher than at filling stations, or wait for fellow soldiers returning from leave to bring fuel in jerry cans. Soldiers have also complained about the poor quality of fuel supplied by the Ministry of Defense. Experts say there is little reason to expect the situation to improve. Russia's fuel production has fallen well short of domestic demand, while few countries are willing to sell petroleum products to the aggressor state.
In addition to Kazakhstan, Russia has also been importing gasoline from Belarus and India to combat fuel shortages. According to one source, Kazakhstan's Condensat refinery shipped 5,000 tons of gasoline to the Volga region and the Moscow area in July, including a batch of around 1,000 tons delivered during the first 10 days of the month. From the Moscow Times report,
Russian authorities are attempting to speed up repairs at damaged oil refineries, but many of these facilities have been struck repeatedly by Ukrainian attacks. As a result, experts believe a full or even stable recovery of the refining sector is unlikely. Russian media report that several refineries with a combined annual processing capacity of around 40 million tons have resumed selling fuel on the St. Petersburg International Mercantile Exchange. However, larger refineries accounting for more than 45 million tons of annual refining capacity have yet to return to the market.
it is becoming increasingly clear that the only way to stop this war is through sustained retaliatory strikes against military and critical infrastructure inside Russia. Once these strikes reach a certain scale, believe me, you'll hear genuine panic from people like Lavrov. Looking at their statements, their reactions, and Putin's temporary disappearance from the public eye in recent weeks, it is clear they are beginning to realize that this war is unfolding according to a very different scenario than they had anticipated.
The Kremlin's response to the fuel crisis has focused primarily on shielding Moscow and St. Petersburg from its consequences. Residents of Russia's regions, and especially those living in occupied Crimea, have received far less attention. Meanwhile, at the height of the harvest season, Russia's Ministry of Agriculture has advised farmers to power agricultural machinery with heating oil and high-sulfur diesel fuel, as conventional diesel supplies continue to run short. Reported by Dmitro Shulha, UATV News.
Well, that's it for today. I'm Henry Keane. Thank you so very much for being with us, for watching this segment. We feel your presence. Thank you for that. Please also share, comment, subscribe to UATV. We got you covered on whatever tomorrow holds for all of us internationally, but always in Ukrainian perspective. Locally, stay safe and see you tomorrow.